Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere, with just an iPad or an iPhone, and no wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ's markerless motion capture in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, analyzing posture and gait mechanics, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit them at kineticiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. You know, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have Metabolic Elite be one of the sponsors of the Zelos Podcast. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. I've seen a lot of supplements and performance enhancement things over the years, but they pair clinical experience with innovation, like Lipitab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, and trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. So learn more at metabolicelite.co. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, Z-E-L-O-S. Hey, thanks for tuning into the Zelos Podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder. This is the show that's all about the pros behind the pros in sports. And this week, I've got a legendary guest, Dr. Donald Chu. He has been the president of the NSCA. He is a Hall of Famer with the National Athletic Training Association, physical therapist, Stanford educated, and he is the one, at least in the Western world, who brought plyometrics to the forefront back in the late 80s and 90s, and we're going to talk all about that. But before we get underway, check out my website, rockysnyder.com, for podcast archives, weekly blogs, and a whole bunch more, including online courses like open and closed chain foot mobilization, or perhaps posture-based soft tissue mobilization. We've got exploring foot wedges, and recently coming down the pipe here, releasing at the end of this month, is ACL resiliency. Stay tuned for that. Also, stay tuned for next week or so, August 20 to the 22nd, the Perform Better 3-day functional training summit happening in Providence, Rhode Island. It's the last one of the year. I will be there, not presenting, but actually just sitting in the seats and learning a whole bunch from a whole bunch of colleagues. So hope you can join us there, Providence, Rhode Island. Go to performbetter.com and click subscribe to this podcast. Leave a review or two and follow us on Instagram at Rocky_Snyder, S-N-Y-D-E-R. Enjoy the conversation. Well, to say that it is an honor to have you as my guest on the Zelos Podcast would be an understatement, Dr. Chu. First off, thank you for your time and welcome to the Zelos Podcast.
Rocky, it's a pleasure to be here.
Now, of course, we spoke before hitting the record button. My first time meeting you was some time ago, and we won't tell how old we were at the time, but I'll say this. O.J. Simpson was riding in a white Bronco. I'll tell you, so that might age us a little bit. That's right. At the time he was hiding in the back seat, you and I were at the NSCA National Conference in New Orleans, Louisiana, 1994. And I had the honor of being like one of those little young trainers, all just wide-eyed and jaw-dropping, to meet the individuals that were so influential in our industry. You, of course, being on the top there. And I couldn't get over the fact that you invited myself, and I think it might have been Hank Drought and Avery Fagenbaum. I can't recall who was in the crowd, but we all went to the House of Blues. And I if I say I remember much about that night, I would be lying. All I remember was just being invited. So I don't think I appear in any photographs. There's no evidence of it, and it's probably a good thing. So, yeah, man, it has been a long and illustrious career for you and your journey and how you have influenced our industry. So first off, I just want to say thank you for everything you've done over the years.
Well, thank you for those kind words, Rocky. I appreciate it quite a bit.
Now, I kind of hate to say it, but there may be a few younger listeners in the audience that may not actually be familiar with Dr. Don Chu. But you have been the NSCA president. You have been with the National Athletic Training Association. And I think one of the most notable kind of monikers, maybe, is that they call you the father of plyometrics. At least I'm seeing this all over the internet when I kind of just do a little biography. But how is that? How does that sit with you, first off, to be called the father of plyometrics?
Well, that's really a misnomer because I was not the developer or inventor of plyometric training. And in fact, that's part of the story. Really, the name plyometrics comes from a track coach in Iowa by the name of Fred Wilt, who coined the term plyometrics because it meant measurable increases. And the types of exercises were designed to produce measurable increases in performance.
So when did you come into the fold with plyometrics? Was it the 80s? When did you start to really develop, I would say, programs that really implemented hops, leaps, jumps, and bounds?
Well, I started after the 1968 Olympics, in which I thoroughly watched the Russians thoroughly whip up on us down in the Olympics in Mexico City. And I noticed that at that time we were kind of bound to the universal machine as our only means of strengthening. And I saw all of the different exercises that the East Europeans were doing, and I thought, there's got to be something here. And so I started researching them a little bit. And then I ran into Ken Contour at a meeting in Los Angeles, California for the NSCA. And Ken Contour asked me if I would write some articles for the NSCA journal describing plyometrics. So I wrote about 6 articles that basically covered all the categories of plyometric exercises. And I tried to explain them and put them into a usable context so that other coaches could take them and develop their own programs.
Fantastic. And then
And
from there, it just kind of started taking off because I won't say you were the first to market necessarily. Like you say, there were others that were doing this internationally. But in terms of the Western world, I mean, I recall jumping into plyometrics. I don't even recall what year it was, but it was somewhere in the 90s. I vividly remember you speaking at a conference talking about the Eastern Europeans and how they were doing depth jumps and trying to determine what the most optimal or appropriate height for a depth jump was, to the point where the athletes were breaking ankles and legs jumping off of enormous heights. So I just have some great memories of that. So how about this? When you first introduced, or when you started to really be asked to introduce plyometrics to Western coaches, did you get a lot of pushback? Because I'm sure some viewed it as unconventional, even risky. So looking back, what do you think people misunderstood most about the true purpose of plyometric training?
Rocky, early in my career, I developed the philosophy that if you want people to believe what you have to say, you have to produce, you have to be a winner. And at the time, I was coaching jumpers in track and field, and I had coached more jumpers over 7 feet than more high jumpers over 7 feet than any other coach in the country. And I was also starting to produce 25 and 54-foot triple jumpers as well. And so 25-foot long jumpers and 55-foot triple jumpers. And then the plyometrics became the basis of their training. And the plyometrics basically told the story of the development of these athletes and the fact that they were achieving these marks and these career goals just kind of lend itself to the whole picture of if you want to become better at performance, this is what you need to do.
Ah, fantastic. And so, with producing such champions and record breakers, heads began to turn, and
Oh, absolutely.
credibility increased. Yeah. Do you have any landmark moments, hallmark moments, where you just you knew this was something that needed to be really developed from I won't say a scientific, because I know that's already what you do, but from a stringent or methodical manner, like rather than just, hey, we're going to go and do some jumps. When did you begin? Well, periodization obviously was just starting to emerge as the acceptable means of program design, especially in the 90s, if I recall right. I know it's been done earlier than that, but when was it that you really started to dig in and go, okay, we need to really go deep on this?
I think the hallmark moment was for me was actually at Sacramento State University when we participated in the national championships, and I had a freshman go 7 plus to win the national title, and another jumper, his backup, who also scored in the top six and became an All American as well, and went over 7 foot. So at that point, I realized that this was material that needed to get out there for people who were truly vested in developing athletes and developing and increasing performances.
Wow. Okay. Scenario here. Play along with me if you don't mind. If you were writing
Sure.
the first chapter of jumping into plyometrics today instead of 30 years ago, what would you add, or what would you write differently?
Well, that's a great question. I think I've always believed that people work better when they have a structure. And so my whole point on the development of plyometric training was to give people a sort of a roadmap on what to do with the exercises and what exercises to pick and to put into a program. Obviously, if you're a vertical jumper versus a linear jumper, there's a different type of exercise that needs to be stressed. And so that was important that I would break down those categories. And I think I would do the same thing today. Actually, when if I were to write jumping into plyometrics all over again.
All right. So there's been remarkable historical figures over the course of time with certain intentions and messages and lessons they put forth. And inevitably, followers of those believers, or those we'll just call them prophets, I guess. Not that I'm calling you a prophet. I don't want to get your head too big there, but
No,
but
no.
uh, but it's often misinterpreted or bastardized. And if those individuals were to see how the message transformed, they may cringe at times. You know what I mean? So, is there a time, like over the course of these last few decades and seeing what you helped to create, have there been moments where you're just going, oh, they're missing the mark? I can't, this has just gotten to be beyond where I wanted to go. Did you ever have those moments?
Oh, I think there definitely was a moment like that. And one of the times was when Daryl Rogers, who was my old football coach down in Fresno, invited me to Arizona State to lecture to his coaching staff on plyometrics. And I got his coaching staff all worked up and they were all fired up. And so every coach began to inject plyometric training into what they were doing on the field. And when they went into their home opener, I think they got beat something like 48-0. And it was because the kids were so dead tired from doing all the plyometrics that all the coaches had programmed for them that they just couldn't perform on game day. And I thought after that, I need to explain this a little further, that this is a developmental process and it does take time, and you do have to know when to allow for recovery, rest and recovery.
Oh, all right, good. Well, I had a feeling there was a moment or two when you just have to shake your head and say, okay, I don't think they really understood what we were trying to get across. So, well, very well, very well. Tell you, let's, if you don't mind, let's roll the tape back even further to your origin story, like growing up and what inspired you to follow the career path that you so did.
Well, when I was in school, I had no idea that I would be follow the career path that I followed, or that any of this would happen to me. I remember taking a chemistry class from a chemistry professor, and I wanted to take an honors chemistry course, and she talked me out of it because she didn't think I would was good enough material for that particular course and that individual course. And I always look back on that and I thought, I wonder what it was that she saw in me or didn't see in me that would lead her to think that I wouldn't be a good student of that. But I think what happened was I've always gone along throughout my educational background thinking that I always wanted to be able to produce athletes that would be better than they were before. And obviously that's every coach's goal. That's called development. And that's one of the things that I truly believed in. And my goal was to make every athlete a better product than when they first encountered me.
And now, aside from football at Fresno State, what other sports were you involved with? Are you competing in?
Well, I started off as a freshman basketball point guard at Fresno State, and wound up dropping out of school because of some integral sorority activity and a bad semester. And I wound up going into the military for 3.5 years. And then when I got out, I came back to Fresno and played football because I'd gained a little weight then, and that's when I encountered Daryl Rogers, who was a huge impact on my life and was my kind of coach. He believed that there's hard work and smart work, and that you would benefit by doing the smart work. So that's the my whole approach was based on that. And even today, athletes can't believe when they work with me because my workouts are about 45 minutes long. And then that's it. We walk away and it's said and done. So it's amazing. But, I think that uh, I've learned a lot of things over the years. I've had a lot of experiences. And I'll never forget the time that I was reading about clusters. The Russians were doing clusters, so-called clusters, in their strength training, and I designed this program where a cluster was a set of sets. So you would have to do a particular exercise many, many times over during this cluster workout. And so I wrote this workout up one time and I thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever produced. I gave it to my athletes and I said, I'll see you later. They went up to the weight room about 10 o'clock in the morning. About 5 o'clock in the evening, I'm coming down to leave my office and I go, hey, I see the same guys in the hallway and I go, hey, how are you guys doing? What have you been doing? They said, well, we've been doing your workout. And I thought, oh, I think I need to change that a little bit. So clusters on clusters was really a professional athlete's workout rather than a collegiate athlete's workout because those guys would have never gotten anything done academically if they'd kept up with that workout.
Oh man. Oh, that's great. Well, I mean, talk about athletes. You have been part of the Olympic Committee, or at least traveling with Olympians. You've consulted to numerous professional sports teams, not only collegiate teams as well, and USA Tennis. I know you're quite involved with that. I is is there a sport, looking back or even looking forward, that still intrigues you yet you have not had any experience with?
That I have not had any experience with. Oh, that's a good question. I think I've had a breadth of experience, and part of that has been due to the fact that everybody sort of latched on to the idea of plyometric training being a benefit and wanting to know more about it. I'll never forget in 1992, I got a phone call from a gal whose name was Chris Carver. Chris Carver's in the Swimming Hall of Fame, and she is a synchronized swim coach. And I had to put the phone down because I was laughing so hard because she said she wanted to have her athletes involved in plyometric training. And I said, well, do you really think that synchronized swimming is a sport where jumping would be of great benefit? And she couldn't answer the question. And so I tried to explain to her that I think that what I needed to do with the synchronized swim team was do a needs analysis and come and talk to the girls and get sort of their injury history and everything, and then come up with a program based on that. Because plyometric training was not going to solve any of their issues, that's for sure. And none of these girls, based on their strength levels at the time, would have survived a plyometric training workout of any kind, even the most basic. So if we started with TheraBands and medicine balls, and we developed a core strengthening program. And eventually we got to where we do a few jumps, but really most of the stuff was involving the trunk and trunk exercises because of what they did in the water and how they moved in the water. And so it was really a different situation for us. But they proceeded to call our workouts plyos because the name just stuck. And we did our plyos all through the. I think I was with them for 4 Olympics and through 4 years of Olympics. And in 2004, I said, I've got to quit because I was having to get up at 4 in the morning to drive to Santa Clara to work out with them because they started very early in the morning and it was killing me.
Oh,
So
the
I
Santa
finally
Clara Aquatic Center, Santa Clara
yeah,
Aquatic
you
Center.
bet. Yeah.
Oh boy, that's an amazing facility. I've been there on a couple of occasions, and wow, fantastic. Wow. Well, okay, that would be an obscure sport. That's very good. But you bring up an interesting topic too. I mean, you are NATA Hall of Famer, and therefore, not only are you're helping top level athletes achieve that little percentage greater of performance, but we're also talking about rehabilitation. So most people think of plyometrics as a way to jump higher, run faster, but you've also applied these principles to rehabilitation, prevention. So how
Oh,
has your view
absolutely.
how has your view of power training expanded over the course of your career?
Well, basically, I'm a physical therapist by degree from Stanford University, and when I came out of school, I thought about the again, when you get somebody that's injured, they're starting at a deficit. Their baseline is usually below normal, and your job is to get them back to normal and a little bit beyond. And I always saw that little bit beyond as definitely part of my modus operandi in terms of rehabilitation. And so we would always interject some plyometric training in there to try and get the kids to respond not only to the rehab process, but to the training process a little bit as well.
We're just going to take a quick pause from this conversation to acknowledge our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. The Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere with just an iPad or iPhone. No wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit kinetikiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. At the forefront of metabolic elite is Jim Lavelle, internationally recognized clinical pharmacist, a chief science officer at Lifetime, and the co-chair for the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. He's got over 4 decades of experience and has guided Olympic athletes, professional teams, and leading health institutions. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. Like LipidTab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, it's trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, ZELOS. Okay, in regards to coaches today, if strength is the foundation and power is the expression, what do you think coaches still fail to appreciate about the transition between the two?
Well, I think that really it's sort of the mating of the two in a training program to fully benefit the athlete. In other words, when you do something, I love complex training, and use it a lot where we do a strength exercise and immediately follow it with a plyometric exercise. And the idea is to sort of utilize the strength development and impose upon it the requirements for speed. And this then makes for a very explosive kind of outcome. And that's what I've always found to be a great benefit with my track and field athletes in particular.
Fabulous. Kind of thinking along, plyometrics, I can dive all day long into that swimming pool. So I think I'm just going to stay in the wading section of it and just kind of play around here with you. But the stretch shortening cycle is often discussed mechanically, but how much of an explosive movement do you believe is neurological rather than muscular?
Oh, quite a bit of it. One of the things that I've always tried to espouse upon is the fact that this is a learned type of activity, and you can train the nervous system to be more explosive. And it's one of the easier things to do. And so everybody has a limit or a potential, obviously, but very few of us ever reach that potential. And so the idea is to find ways to get people to come close to realizing their true potential in a particular activity or particular sport.
I'm thinking about child's play, and I'm thinking about when we were very young, perhaps grade school age. That's just how we lived. We played. There were games, whether it was tag or jump rope, jumping jacks, a whole bunch of different games that required plyometric skills. And yet, over the course of time, we as a population want to have our children mature. And part of that definition of maturity is to stop child's play. Do you think that's a disservice?
It is. It really is. You can regiment the training so much that you start to lose the joy of actual performance. And I think that's something that, I always want my athletes to be able to express the fact that they get a joy out of performing and they get a joy out of winning. And the idea is that we work so hard and we train so hard for a particular outcome that when we reach that outcome, we deserve a treat for that day.
So, did you ever give them treats in the form of child's play, or maybe it was a movement prep, or kind of these days we call it activation? But were there any favorite kind of little drills or skills that you would throw in there where the athletes couldn't help but smile and giggle?
Well, you're always trying to think of new ideas like that, but I think the main thing I did with my track and field athletes is that after they performed and they did well, I always treated them to dinner, and we always went out and had a very good fine dinner afterwards. And it was like, okay, here's what you get for putting in all that work.
Fantastic. Now, you have been a member of the NSCA. When did you actually? When did you join the NSCA?
Oh, I think it was 1983.
So 2 years before the CSCS certification exam actually rolled out.
Exactly.
Your membership number probably has just a few digits to it. That's okay compared to the 6 or 7 that everyone else has. I love that. In the time that you've been a member, I'm just curious the direction that the organization has headed, whether with your leadership or outside of that, is it it's is it in the direction that you had a vision toward, if you had visions toward it at all?
Well, I think it really has. I think part of my vision was the process of certification and the process of recognizing programs within schools or curricular development that would lead to a particular outcome in strength and conditioning. And I think that the NSCA has pretty well established those goals. Tom Beckley did a great job with the certification commission when he was in charge of it, and I know that all the people who worked on the certification committee, Dan Wathen, myself, Mike Stone, all of those people, all the sort of the founding fathers of the NSCA, really did a great job of coming up with questions and ideas for certifying individuals to make sure that a certain level of performance was attainable by people who wanted to teach and train other athletes.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, the I feel like standing on the shoulders of giants is what we are doing these days, and you being one of them. What I'm really very pleased and very excited about, if we look into the future, is the collaboration that the NSCA is now taking with organizations like the American Physical Therapy Association and the National Athletic Training Association. I think it's probably been years in the making, and now it's coming to fruition. How do you feel about that yourself, being an athletic trainer, a physical therapist, and a CSCS?
I think it's great because I've always envisioned the fact that all of the groups had something to offer to this stew that we were all trying to make in order to get athletes to perform at a top level. And I think it's something that, everybody needs to be able to understand and needs to be able to cooperate on in order to develop the best programs and to
Brilliant.
have the most effective outcomes.
So, gosh, I've got so many questions for you, and they feel like they're all not connected. But I'm just going to continue with this line of thought. The tennis, the experience you've had with U.S. Tennis Association. Where do you put that in your career? Like, I'm sure you've got trophies and awards everywhere, but where do you hold that amongst all the other things that you've done?
Well, I have to say that my connection with tennis was really through an individual named Paul Roeder, who was the director of the program at Key Biscayne for elite athletes in tennis. And Paul brought me into the fold and put me on to the USTA Sports Science Committee, of which I managed to stay on it for 10 years. And I'm a lousy tennis player, I'll tell you that right now. But the idea was that we're working with athletes and we're trying to produce athletes who have a certain skill level. And this is where it became really interesting because you weren't trying to produce the biggest, strongest athletes in the world when you worked with tennis players. You were really looking for other goals and other outcomes. You were looking for agility and change of direction and deceleration and ability to have hand-eye coordination, these kinds of things. So there was a melting pot of uh, of different skill sets that were necessary in order uh, to achieve the absolute maximum in terms of training for tennis players.
Oh, right on. I just I think back, and again, there was a time you were presenting talking about the Edgren sidestep test and the importance of lateral agility and reaction time, and to this day I still use it with a lot of the athletes that come and see me. um, okay,
Sure.
it's I'm coming back to plyometrics now, and I'm going to really just carve up this fellow's name, but it's Yuri Verkhoshansky, I think it.
Verkhoshansky.
Thank you. He's
Yeah.
often credited with developing the science behind plyometrics. Well, you've been credited in many corners by bringing those concepts to Western coaching. What lessons from his work remain just as relevant today, and for that matter, your coaching too? What stands the test of time?
Well, I think the actual mechanics of what went on in terms of implementing plyometric training in an athlete's program were sort of the standards that Vereshchansky used with the high jumpers in Russia. And those were programs that I emulated and that I took and refined. And the only thing I can say is that I've found that you can't take an American athlete and put them in a Russian program because it just won't work. They'll disintegrate. Russian programs are way too tough for American kids. But what you
Wait,
have
wait,
to do is
okay, hold on. What do you mean by that? I just not that I'm being patriotic right now, but what's the difference there?
well, it's a lot of it is that the Russian coaches were, and I quote a friend of mine, Remy Korchemny, who's a pretty good sprint coach, who uh, who actually worked for me in a clinic, and I had to calm him down for a while because the Russian style is do it again, 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 and do it again. And I'd have to go to him and say, Remy, you're wearing these people out because he was creating more injuries than he was getting results. And so this is the thing that, again, I think that, you take the American kid and the way they're developed and the way their mentality is, you have to allow for some freedom of expression, and you have to allow for some rest and recovery in their training programs. They're not just robots.
Well said. Well said. Okay, so along that line, do you think today's coaches have become better at applying plyometrics, or have we simply created more creative looking exercises?
You know, it's here's the point that I like to make is that when I talk and I speak on plyometrics, it is amazing to me how many people act like it's the first time they've ever heard this stuff, and
Really?
it's the first time they've ever encountered anything like plyometric training. So it really is a little bit discouraging when you think that this stuff should be old hat and we should be going beyond the basics, but somehow there's still that need for basic information.
Well, I guess I'm old hat then. Call it what it will be. But wow, I had no idea, and that's probably because I'm not in your spot, and I don't go out and put on lectures or workshops with plyometrics. Okay, so I out of all the achievements, there also comes learning lessons, and what I mean by that, we can also say I don't like saying mistakes, but the, most of the time when I learn, it's because not because of successes, but the opposite. So, what is the biggest learning lesson you've made as a coach that ultimately made you a better educator and a better coach?
The first 4 years that I worked with track and field, I wrote down every workout that I gave an athlete, and I kept those programs for 4 years. And after 4 years, I looked back over those programs and I felt like I then understood what it would take to for a freshman to come into college and leave college as a national champion.
Oh,
And that was the
fabulous.
ultimate goal, was to have a developmental program that brought the athlete along to a certain level for each at each year. They would show they would be in a little bit better position than they were the year before.
And how many years did you coach at the collegiate level?
I think I coached 14 years at the collegiate level.
Were there any times that you were exclusively an athletic trainer or exclusively a physical therapist?
Yes, and at one point, uh, I worked with the junior national soccer team because the head coach was a fellow by the name of Colin Lindoris, who knew me fairly well and wanted me to act as his trainer for the at that time I think it was the junior national team. Kobe Jones and those guys were all on it.
Out of all the roles, out of all the hats that you have worn across the years, which one felt the best or fit the best for you, would you say?
Oh, I would say my endeavors into track and field. I think I achieved the most satisfaction seeing people go out and win individual titles, win individual goals, go as far as they could go, and we really met a lot of the demands for people to go on and have a successful collegiate career and even be successful after their collegiate career.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to keep those gray cells really sharp right now with you, and I would like to invite you to do a little rapid fire question session with me if you're game.
I'm game. Go ahead,
All right.
Rocky.
Let's go. It could be just one word answers or, however you want to do it. But I've got 10 questions and I'm going to throw them at you rather quickly. We'll call them plyometric responses. I'm interested in your amortization phase. That's what I want. The stretch shortening. Boom. Give it to me. Here we go. Strength or power?
Power.
Depth jumps or bounding?
depends on the goal. Again, depth jumps are for vertical development, and bounding exercises are for linear jumpers or jumpers
Dang.
who are trying to travel a long way.
That's great. That wasn't a trick question, by the way. It was just something I thought of. How about quality or quantity?
Quality always.
What's the most underrated athletic quality?
Most underrated athletic quality is probably hand-eye coordination
Ooh,
because
nice.
really so few people have it.
So juggling is a good skill everyone should have.
Juggling is a good skill, and particularly if you're a race car driver.
Ooh, I love it. How about biggest plyometric myth?
Biggest plyometric myth is more is better.
I love it. I'm reminded every time I hear that phrase, I'm reminded of this poster back in grade 5 of 3 hippopotamuses. 2 of them are sitting in a rowboat with the water just up to the gunnel, and the other one is falling in midair down and all about to land in the boat. So there you have it. How about this, force or velocity?
Velocity,
One exercise every athlete should master.
the squat.
The most common programming mistake.
Most common programming mistake is quantity,
All right.
too much of it.
Got it. One quality every great coach needs.
Empathy,
I love it. Okay, if there was one word that defines athletic power, what would it be?
explosiveness.
Man, that was it. That was all 10. You were a champ. I just, anybody says that Dr. Chu is slowing down, they have got to talk to me because I don't think that's the case at all.
Well, I
Unbelievable.
appreciate
Even in
that, Rock.
retirement. Man, I can't thank you enough. So I guess the last question for me is, how are you enjoying retirement, aside from having this conversation with me, which is probably the highlight of your day, if not mine?
Listen, I'm loving life, and I'm spending a lot of time in the recliner because almost a year ago, in September of last year, I was walking on a cruise ship on a trip to Alaska, a cruise to Alaska, and I blew out my Achilles tendon,
Ooh.
walking no less, walking. And
Oh,
I've known a lot of athletes that were involved in plyometric training in their early days, and I used to demonstrate a lot of stuff, and I was wondering if maybe the stress of all of doing all of that had something to do with the weakening of my tendon.
did you need surgery to repair?
I didn't go the surgery route, A, because of my age, and B, because of some comorbidities. And I just decided I'm going to rehab this thing and I'm going to make it work, and I'm getting there. It hasn't been a year yet, so I'm giving myself a year to come back from it.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great goal to have. And, well, I'm not around. I'm just down the street from you, more or less. And if there's anything I can do to help, you being in Alameda, there's that one landmark is the USS Hornet. Tell me you've been on the aircraft carrier, have you?
I have a long time ago. I was actually stationed when I was in the military. I rode the USS Midway, which is on display down in San Diego. I rode that over to the Southeast Asia conflict, and it was an interesting time in my life.
I imagine. Maybe another time we'll connect, and I would love to hear your stories about that too.
Oh, I've got
Doc,
a few.
I bet you do, but you have been so gracious to allow the time that you've already allowed me. I can't ask for more right now. And I can't thank you enough for just spending some time with me and giving me some insight and I learned so much from the people that come on the show, and for you, over the years, and not just in this time that we've been talking today, but I just can't thank you enough. You're one of the greatest inspirations a young trainer coming up in the ranks through the 90s, you were a shining light, and you still are. And thank you so much for being that.
Well, I appreciate those kind words. I really do.
And instantly, that is one conversation for the vault. We're gonna probably take that up and show it or post it again in the not too distant future. I mean, it's not very often that you get to sit down with Hall of Famer legendary coaches like Dr. Chu. Forever grateful for that. Don't forget, check out my website, rockysnyder.com, for the online courses, open and closed chain foot mobilization, posture-based soft tissue mobilization, exploring foot wedges, and the new ACL resiliency soon to come out. I'll see you in Providence, Rhode Island, the weekend of the 20th to the 22nd this month for the Perform Better 3-day functional training summit. Hopefully you've already registered. Be sure to come on up and let me know you're a listener, and tell a few other people so they can join the ranks there too. One more word from our amazing sponsors, and we'll see you next week. Remember to check out metabolicelite.co. Check out all the products they have on their website. Synapsin Pro is something I've been using to help stay focused without having to over-caffeinate myself. It keeps me in the zone so I can just really hone in on the things I need to achieve without feeling like, man, I gotta reach for an energy drink every 5 minutes. metabolicelite.co. And don't forget, Kinetic IQ. They've got markerless motion capture for morons like me. I can use their product with my iPhone or my iPad. I can look at posture analysis, movement analysis of any exercise, gait analysis. It gives me everything I could possibly want when tracking people's movements. So, check out kinetikiq.com.